Binge watch and learn on TRS Clips.
I want to ask you about USA, primarily because you have a lot of fans from there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, one, what's your geopolitical commentary on it? And second, what do you think is the future? Third, what's your message to the fans?
Oh, let's start with the fans. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. I'm always amazed that people want to hear what I have to say. So that's great. What will happen to the USA? The US is a fabulous country. If you've been there, you would great places to eat, lovely weather most of the times, very interesting people. There are obvious problems too. You're more likely to be killed by a teenager with a gun in the US today than in Afghanistan. That says a lot about what they're turning into. The fact that they have denied half of their population a basic right on their own bodies is unbelievable. I don't have a strong enough adjective to use here. But really, to say that women do not have the right to abort an unwanted baby is taking the country back to Stone Ages.
Where do you think the source of that thought has come from? Where do you think the source?
It's politics.
Okay.
This is whole Republicans, church, life, pro-life. But this is not pro-life. A woman is already a life form. And by forcing a baby on her, you are ruining one life and potentially the life of the child who is going to be an unwanted child into this world. And medical science is advanced enough to know at what point it's okay to abort. I have very strong views on this. And since we've been discussing content and all, I did a series of reports on abortion. They got no viewership. But I think it's a subject that must be touched upon. It's not okay for so many women to suffer. When childbirth is not a woman's doing alone, but in 9 times out of 10, she has to suffer the consequences of it. So for a society that calls itself forward-looking, developed, it's a huge blot on the US. The third issue is because everyone knows the positives anyway. What's going great. They're on top of their tech game. They're doing great. Their businesses. They've really aced the whole concept of taking the moral high ground, even when they have no feet to stand on. They just tell the world. They lecture the world what to do, how to do it. They have immense soft power. I mean, everyone talks about what NASA is doing. I'm not sure how many people can name the space agency of Japan or China or, if a child is picked up for a NASA course, it's in the newspapers in India. But if they're doing something with ISRO, they'll probably make it to the school board.
Or if Kim Kardashian is doing something.
Exactly. So that's soft power and due credit where they deserve it. So they have it and they have hard power. They have the military. They try to dictate the rules of how the world should be run. But they also have a very skewed understanding of what the sensibilities of this part of the world. They've not really figured it out. I think Americans also sometimes tend to, as they say, they use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. They shot down a $16 balloon with a $1 million missile. They're really not thinking sometimes. It's funny. So they have some obvious problems. I think that whole superpower status is slowly eroding because the world is beginning to see the double standards. I mean, how can you lecture other people on rights of minorities when blacks are suffering in your country? I think in the past, a lot of these things were not said. Now they are. And now the whole world is looking for an alternative narrative and for spaces where you can say these things and say them openly. I think the West has for a very long time tried to tell us how to be, what to eat, how to think, what to read. Maybe we're done with it.
But there's still a lot of people who'll agree with aspects of their version of social sciences
Yes,
in India, sitting in India,
absolutely.
and will still apply it to Indian problems, which are extremely unique to our country and our geography and our history.
And so, when they took over Iraq, and this is from a book that a journalist wrote, there was somebody who was a volunteer or some worker in the Republican Party in San Francisco. And he was asked to do something with the traffic department in Iraq, and he didn't know what to do because he had no experience. So he went to the website of the traffic rules for San Francisco and copied them for Iraq. It doesn't work. So what works in America may not work here. That is not to say that they don't have some great institutions and good concepts and great places to study. All I'm trying to say is that it's not right to think of everything Western or American as the gold standard.
My reading is, after meeting a ton of Americans, again, you can't generalize, but for the most part, at least the ones that travel are relatively friendly, but they're just unaware of what's happening in the rest of the world a little bit. And that's probably because of the media in that country. And also, I do believe that American problems do affect the rest of the world. Therefore, Americans are more focused on American problems and politics rather than what's happening in the world, which prevents them from having a bit of a worldview. When you talk to Europeans, it's a very different scenario. They're kind of aware. There is a very stark difference when you meet Europeans.
I think there's a clear trend that people in developed countries tend to look inwards and are not interested in what may be happening elsewhere. Whereas people in the developing world, like an average Indian is any day more aware of not just the local and national politics, but also international affairs compared to an average American.
Yeah. And I don't think that's going to change. You can't like shift culture.
Yeah.
So TRS Clips has all sorts of videos and all sorts of playlists. Make sure you explore the channel by subscribing and heading to our homepage and reading through all the playlists. Happens through curiosity.